Hello again, this is Vilo, and I'm very excited to welcome you all to the 5th product update webinar with Leverj. Today we're going to cover the launch of our beta on testnet and get caught up on the progress of development. I just like to say that we've been very fortunate enough to have an amazing community of very smart and motivated testers who want to be a part of creating the next premier crypto trading destination with Leverj. So thank you to all that have been working with us. And for more information on how to get involved, that will you'll hear about that in the webinar. So with that, I give you Shashank.
Hey, thanks, Vilo. And thank you, everyone, this morning for joining the webinar. I also want to chime in and sort of add on to what Vilo just mentioned, which is we're extremely fortunate to have a bunch of people in a community who care about making Leverj the most awesome platform, who are investing their time, effort, energy, and not only just finding bugs and being part of the sort of beta testing process, but also bringing in their expertise, bringing in their knowledge, bringing in their background in crypto trading or technology, and giving us some great ideas. So please keep them coming. We sincerely appreciate it. One of the advantages of a decentralized exchange is the fact that it is sort of for the community, by the community, and we really appreciate this participation. So thank you for everything that you guys are doing. So okay, so let's jump right in and start looking at where we are with respect to our beta testing process. So as Vilo mentioned, we kicked our beta testing program late last month, pretty much on the last day on May 31st. The way we are approaching beta testing is we've launched it on testnet, of course, right, to make sure that we understand the functionality, we make the product robust, and then when the time is right, we launch all out on mainnet. So we are in that phase of being on testnet and essentially going through feature by feature or feature group by feature group of testing. Now, the beta testers today are, I would say, a subgroup of our community. What we had done sort of more informally, I would say, but mostly via our social channels and the channels that we use to interact with our community, is really ask people who would be interested, who had the right background and the time and energy to invest in this beta testing adventure, if you may. And we had a lot of you, who reached out, and like I said, we are fortunate. We have a good, vibrant community, so a lot of people came forward and offered their help. And what we've done right now is we have a sort of a select group out of that. Largely what I would say selected, people who are able to invest time and who want to actively participate. And that's the group that's working on it as it stands. Now, what we do want to mention and want to be explicit about this is that if there is somebody who is not in the program today, but wants to be in the program, well, just reach out, right? Like, let us know. We are a very inclusive company and a very inclusive community. And, if you have the right time, energy, background, bring it on, right? We want you here. So it's not late by any means. And I certainly also feel that I think, as we go through our entire process, there would be various levels of participation depending on availability and time and the other factors that would be relevant. So what we did was, in order to get the few people who originally were, I would say, more involved than others, people who were willing to invest a substantial amount of time and energy, we had a little kickoff call with them. The main idea of kickoff call was just to set up around tooling, around basic sort of focus of what we could do and how we'll approach beta testing. What we ended up doing was really more discussion around the process, right? And the process itself will sort of evolve. And what we all agreed, which I think the community also liked and we also liked internally, is that we're not going to define some rigorous formal process, if you may, but we will essentially iterate and modify the process in a way that it becomes more useful for us and more productive for the beta testers. So from there, essentially what we've been doing is we've been deploying our software, if you may, or our platform on the testnet, which is accessible via test.leverj.io. And when you go to that site, you're basically informed of what features are available and what, in some sense, is not working yet. And then you go through, sort of feature by feature and get engaged and get involved in it. Now, what we do intend to do is, in the spirit of continuous integration and continuous deployment, which is how pretty much modern software is built, we will be doing regular updates to the build out there. So obviously we are logging bugs and feature requests, and we have a roadmap that we want to work towards. And so we will keep releasing. We'll keep building, and as we keep building and keep testing in our develop instances, and we feel comfortable, we'll start promoting those builds to the testnet. And so, which essentially means that most of you will get hold of a fresh enough, a good enough build every few days, and then you can work off that build and keep testing them incrementally. Now, our primary mechanism for communication, collaboration, and just overall sort of group coordination is via our social channels. We have, of course, our Telegram groups, which are fairly active and vibrant, and thanks to Vilo and a bunch of others, including Swapman and Bharat and others who are actively sort of on it. I try to make myself available there too, and we are there to work with you folks, get your ideas, answer your questions, and kind of work together. So if you aren't already on the Telegram groups, I would highly encourage, please go join them. If you don't know which groups those are or which ones I'm talking about, of course, feel free to ask us questions during this webinar, and one of us, Vilo or I, could guide you in the right direction there. And then from a more beta testing, bug reporting, feature request reporting standpoint, we've been leveraging Trello, which is essentially an agile software development suite, which is just helping us coordinate and keep things on the rails. And what the Trello boards are really doing is they are recording things into more bucketed, slightly more organized areas, so that we all have visibility and we're able to track and work towards the various bits that need attention. And then of course, do remember, like I said, it's continuing effort. So like, if you haven't signed up yet, you want to be part of the process, just let us know. Okay. So that's the kind of beta program. And like I said, a lot of this is going on within our communication and coordination is going on within our Trello board. So the next few minutes, I will sort of walk through the bits about the Trello board and the mechanics of how we are recording it, what we are recording, and what's going on within the entire sort of beta program. Now, what I would encourage all the listeners is, if at any point in time you do have a question, just let us know. Just sort of ask it right away, and I can pause and answer it. We don't have to wait towards the end of the presentation. So please don't hesitate. Now, what I would mention is that if you look at the current sort of Trello boards, the way they are structured is essentially around what I would call 4 dimensions of our overall focus areas as a part of our beta testing. So first and foremost, rather, is around let's go test what we have, or the features that we have built, and of course identify bugs or identify deficiencies or identify improvements. So all of that is bucketed into what is called current testing. And the current testing is nothing but a word for really the brass tacks of recording bugs and recording improvements. Now, we do realize that not everything falls into the bucket of mapping 1:1 with the features that we are shipping right away, but there are things which are slightly more midterm to long term. There are usability improvements. There are some good ideas that we should include as a part of our exchange. And all of those are going into the second bucket, which is essentially feature requests. right? And what we don't want to do is forget them or lose them. So we do want to make sure that we record them, we triage them, and we make sure that we prioritize them appropriately at the right point in time. So that's where the feature request bucket comes in. And then the third one, which is major bug reports. Well, they are sort of in sync with current testing, but we've created a separate category primarily to say, hey, this is a showstopper. This one is an absolute no-go, or this one is a critical bug, and so let's go record it there. It's possible some of these boards might get merged as we keep moving forward, depending on whatever the community wants and however the development team finds it productive. But certainly at this point in time, we've just kept them separate. And then last but not the least, we of course have a category for everything else, which is the miscellaneous feedback, right? Now, if you look at it, the 4 boards, which is the current testing board and the feature request board, the major bug reports, and the miscellaneous feedback board, are all public boards. So these are open for anyone's viewing. Pretty much anyone out there can go and look at the boards and read the stories or read the cards out there. Now, this is intentional. What we do want to do, and which we have mentioned in the past, is that we want to keep it totally open and totally public. We have been very transparent in how we operate, and we take pride in that. We like to involve our community and work with them. And I think in that same spirit, we want to make sure we put our progress out there in the public eyes so that people know where we are, what we are up to, how we are progressing. And as I mentioned earlier, we like getting feedback. We actually genuinely like getting feedback. So if you see the boards and you have good ideas to make it an awesome product and help us improve, reach out. We want to hear from you. And then of course, like I mentioned, there's sort of a subgroup, if you may, which is more involved. So these are the people who are spending substantial amounts of time almost every day or every week. And these are the people who are testing very actively. Like I said, some of them have sort of put their hands up, and they're really helping us quite a bit in getting that going. If you are also one of those and not in the program yet and want to be one of those, well, just reach out, right? And so these people have access to add cards. So these people have access to log bugs, log feature requests. Now, our intention, again, like I said, I want to re-emphasize, is to be inclusive. So if you are one of those, well, just let us know, and you can be part of all these 4 sort of different buckets of activities. You can be involved in the current testing. You can give us sort of future sort of feature requests, and then of course, if you have any other ideas, I would say even business related ideas that we should enter into, or anything around our innovation or glue on plasma or something else, we'll just get involved. Okay. So with the Trello boards, let's kind of dig a little more, a little deeper into what's going on with each of those. And this is more, I would use this more like a status update, sort of summarize it for the broader audience out here to say where we are. And like I said earlier, very happy to answer questions that you may have. So today, the current testing board is, sort of very actively being used. Many people are also logging bugs or telling us about things that they're unsure about via our Telegram channels. We've been trying to bring everything into this sort of centralized Trello interface, but of course, we don't want to discourage anyone. So we've also been looking at our Trello boards and kind of grooming and keeping them both in sync. Now, the way we are trying to categorize them is, one, of course, we're calling out 2 important things, which is super important for any testing effort. Is one is like known issues. For example, withdrawal, right? So like we haven't implemented it yet fully. Withdrawal is a interesting process within a decentralized exchange that's going to leverage glue on plasma, and it has a lot of very interesting nuances to it, which I'm confident you all will like. But we haven't put that first. So since it is not implemented yet, or it's a known issue, you could put it that way, we want to call it out so that people don't waste their time and energy working through testing that part of the feature set. Now, soon enough, some of these which are on the known issues list or unimplemented list will obviously make their way into the testable functionality list, because that's how it's going, right? We're working feature by feature, piece by piece, and then of course we let the community know what should be tested. So what is exactly working today? Like what's there in the testnet that's working? So you can register. You can go and use MetaMask as our sort of first experiment, if you may. In future, we do want to support other mechanisms. We do realize and believe that serious traders with big enough portfolio or even active traders like to keep their systems more secure and may end up leveraging something like a hardware wallet, for example, right, to use the registration and sort of authorization process. So those are certainly in the works. Those are part of the entire roadmap. But what we want to start out with is let's make sure we can at least do the basics, that we can do not one things. So we have registration via MetaMask. It works smoothly in the Chrome browser. Now, do remember that with so many web browsers now, of course, having a common base, there are still some idiosyncrasies between browsers. And what we do want to do at this phase is focus on the core functionality and not get caught up into cross-browser testing. Now, again, I want to be clear here that in due course of time, when we are live, these will be important because we do want to make sure that we support all the mainstream browsers. And what we've heard so far from our community, again, which is fantastic, is that of course there are the popular 4 browsers, right? I mean, Chrome sort of leading the way, and then we've got Firefox and Opera and Safari, and these browsers are common among not only just general users but crypto traders. So in due course of time, obviously there'll be support for all of these, starting with Chrome, which is also very developer friendly and has a large audience. But it seems like there might be some appetite for looking at other browsers. We've seen our community reach out and said, can you support Brave? The crypto community likes it. And what we've done is that's great feedback. We'll certainly put it on the roadmap. And, once we've gone through this list, we'll certainly would like to support that if we can, right? And then some other people have jumped in and also mentioned, a few other browsers which may be more specialized or in a certain subset of people. There was request for browser, the Yandex browser, which seems to be sort of a fork off or a derivative of Chrome. And so like that, we're very open. We love to see this request. We want to know what you guys are using. And if there are specific things that people are using and it makes sense and it's stable, then obviously we want to put it on the roadmap. Now, like I mentioned, the important part of the puzzle here is that we want to logically sort of prioritize and triage through these both bugs as well as feature requests. So we don't get caught up in trying to support things which may not be fundamentally important. But at the same time, we want to make sure that they're attended at the right point in time. So today, what else can you do? You can register. You can sign in. Now, what does sign in and register mean, right? Because from a usual workflow, people could get a bit confused, especially if you have the standard sort of login password based authentication. You feel like, yeah, well, registration is first time setting it up, and then login is doing it in subsequent moments, the same thing. Now, if you remember our exchange, and if you've seen one of our Zero Knowledge API key webinars and read up our blog posts, which I highly encourage you should go back and look at it, because hopefully you'll appreciate and enjoy it. You have two sort of notions or two concepts that are very important in exchange. So you register with your account, right? And then you can create essentially your API key, if you may, or your identity or origination, if you may, that you can use to trade. So when you sign in, the keys that you would have saved during the registration process could be used to sign in and then conduct a trade. So that part of the flow also is sort of in place. You obviously got to make a deposit. If you haven't made a deposit, obviously you can't place any trades. This is all on testnet, and we do have ways for you. Obviously, I mean, within testnet and on Ropsten, you can go and get yourself Ether, but we also have ways set up for you to go to get yourself some Lev, and then you can play with it and you can test it out. Now, these are, of course, basic things of registering, sign-in, deposit. And then what follows is the essentials or the fundamental things around trading. So you can place an order. We are currently focused on limit order. So limit order is our sort of the primary first focus. And once you placed an order, If there's a corresponding order from somebody else, the order matches and settles. You can also, of course, cancel the order. So these might seem like very fundamental, very simple features, and they are. We're not denying that. But there's a lot of complicated infrastructure behind the scenes, including the entire Gluon Plasma-based system that allows us to scale and work smoothly between the online and offline models. So all of that is behind the scenes that's working. And what we do want to do is, as we incrementally test, we want to make sure that we test both, of course, the usability and the features, but also the stability of the application and how it impacts our underlying infrastructure, which is going to be the sort of the foundation stone on which Leverj would be built, right? Which will allow us to work in this login-less manner, in a sort of trustless manner, if you may, and function at speed and function in a way that it matches sort of centralized exchanges, yet being decentralized. So anyway, bringing things back here, of course, the rest of the things are very self-evident, but we're logging bugs. If there are questions, we encourage people to put their questions in. And as we are fixing, we obviously move the tickets and mark them. Now, as we do a bunch of fixes, like I mentioned, we will also start refreshing or updating our testnet instance. So that way you can go and see the fixes and verify them and confirm them. So that's what we'll be doing. In fact, some of you who've been actively involved have asked when is the next build coming, and the good news is that it's coming soon. So we have a bunch of fixes from the initial bunch of feedback, and we do expect to bring one update pretty soon. Possibly over this weekend, if you find some time. Worst come worst, early next week, but it's coming really soon. Okay. Now moving on to the next board. So the next one is sort of the feature requests. The first one, like I mentioned, was more brass tacks, more here and now, more of the current testing. And this one takes the position of a little more, hey, you got some midterm, long-term things that you would like to see, bring it on, put it on the list. And then we would love to make sure that it doesn't fall off the radar. And as and when it looks more important, or there are enough of you who would like it, it probably gets prioritized and gets done sooner. So we have, of course, a whole bunch of requests coming in this bucket. We do also have a lot of people chiming in through our Telegram channels, where they're talking about features that they would like to see. And that's great. And of course, we got a little work to do in terms of cleaning up the board and bring on some of those Telegram channel-based requests onto the same board, if you may. And so you'll see this in a healthy way, sort of growing and being triaged and being sort of prioritized and reprioritized. Now, a lot of this also are sort of product leaders within the setup are actively managing. Swap is certainly spending a good bit of time cleaning and aligning this with the larger vision as well. Third category is, of course, supercritical bugs. And I would say the biggest of this is the loss of funds, right? So what we do want to do is, our overall idea is that this whole beta process, as much as it's about functionality, is also fundamentally around testing our, what I would call algorithmic fidelity. So if we are able to make sure that our exchange functions properly, and when I say functions properly, is functions within the realm of our, what I would call the sort of trilemma, if you may, of speed, stability, and then decentralization, and make sure that we can make that successful. We want to make sure we don't run into some fundamental issues where, because of our errors or because of the way we have implemented it or because of certain scenarios, we enter into a situation where there is even a vague chance of a loss of funds. So what we do want to do is we want to go on the extra mile, if you may, as a part of our testing process, and make sure that these things are in place and these things are really well tested, and that we look at every single scenario where we make sure that such kind of cases, which can be extremely devastating, are handled, tested, over-tested, and are addressed. So you will see a lot of sort of focus on these, what we have been calling this as a major bug report area. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I think some of this and what we are calling current testing may just get merged, because over a period of time, it may not make sense to keep multiple boards, and there might be a case for just sort of putting it together. You will also see, as we start moving forward, a lot more of the functionality around fraud proof and glue on plasma, or directly related to glue on plasma, as we start getting into the withdrawal and the challenge part of the story. And that's when I think some of this will become even more relevant. Now, one more small topic here that I should also mention is the network issues, the Ethereum network issues. We did have a bunch of Ethereum testnet network issues earlier this week, especially around Ropsten's instability. And that did hamper and stall some of our testing. So not that it was within our control, but I totally empathize and do apologize to the beta testers who were a little scrambling to get hold of the newer builds. We didn't like it either with the Ropsten going down. And so over a period of time, as we start expanding more and more into our sort of testing story, we would also like to make sure that we can possibly support more than one of these environments. Now, for those of you who are building in the the whole sort of Infura test blockchain networks, you would realize that Ropsten actually is one of the most friendly ones out of those, right, for multiple reasons, and which is why we had chosen it, and which is why we would like to continue to work with it. But over a period of time, if it makes sense, we certainly want to also have failover options. It's not a high priority because we do want to make sure that we stay focused on what is more important. But in due course of time, we will look at maybe Coven or Rinkeby and whatever else makes sense. Okay. Last but not the least, or perhaps last and the most important sometimes, because this is what users interact with more directly, is things around UX improvements and UI improvements. A lot of great ideas again, phenomenally good ideas, where people have been suggesting things that either should be changed quickly or things that they would like to see in future. And, again, keep them coming. I do want to mention that some of what you see on test.leverj.io isn't the final big product. When I say what you see final big product, I mean more in terms of usability. There are a bunch of usability improvements, especially in the UI, and small nuances in terms of making sure that right things get focused, right things get emphasized. And those bits, is something that is on our radar. It's there on our list. It may not even show on these, sort of Trello lists at the moment, but they have been part of the dev lists. We will certainly bring them on and merge the two. But we do realize it. We do want to make the user experience very, very compelling and awesome and nice and smooth across devices, responsive. That is all part of our plan. But of course, we want to go in a staged manner. We go and first address the basic functionality, get it working, and then there will be a time when there'll be a concerted effort around just making sure we keep doing a lot of usability improvements. Now, that said, you will still see usability improvements coming on an ongoing basis. So it's not like it'll all happen once we finish all the functionality, but more of it will happen once we finish some of the core functionality. So, just kind of summarizing here, you saw, already you learned a fair bit about the beta testing program. I shared a whole bunch around the various boards, if you may. And once again, thank you all of you who are involved in this effort. We sincerely appreciate it. Keep it coming. And then, of course, what's going to come. So that's what's going on, right? And as I mentioned, we've had some initial deployments. More are coming soon. The first set of essential features is what we're focusing on. Glue on Plasma is kind of the secret sauce, if you may, which will make a decentralized exchange scale like a centralized exchange and be fast and snappy and provide great user experience. And we want to make sure we get that absolutely right. The initial versions of that you see in action on the testnet, and of course a lot more is coming. And then of course I've mentioned it already a few times, but it's still not enough. Thank you everyone for all the help, and like I said, keep it coming. So with that said, last but not the least, for this morning, I do want to mention what's coming. I just want to give a little look ahead, if you may, or preview of what's coming. And then I would love to take some questions, right? Or thoughts or comments or just about anything else that you have in your mind. And I'd love to address that. So coming weeks, there's one deployment coming soon. As I mentioned earlier, possibly over this weekend, worst come worst, early next week. But yeah, it's coming really soon because we have a bunch of fixes and we want to make sure you get hold of it. And in the same spirit, expect to get frequent fixes and frequent deployment updates. We are largely using our Telegram channels to inform people when we have newer builds in place. And we'll continue to do that because we feel like that's probably both easiest and also it reaches most of you. Now, features, I've already walked through it. There's no point kind of re-walking through this or revisiting this, but there are essential bunch of features. We will sort of stay focused on these features for a little bit more time just to make sure that we've got them absolutely right and we have solved most of the bugs in that area. And then our next bit would be really around withdrawal and glue on plasma and a lot of the fundamental bits. Now, once we have done the current listed set of features plus withdrawal, we will start walking into what you could call them as advanced features, but of course necessary for most smooth institutional or active trading, which is where people have spoken about more functionality on the charts, usability improvements, other types of orders, other ways of registering, and so on and so forth. The list goes on. And already mentioned again, but the process is going to be iterative. You'll also start seeing usability improvements. They will come in small packets until a point where we have done a whole bunch of core features, and then we can open the floodgates and stay focused a lot more on usability and work through a whole lot of responsive and design and a lot of the sort of look and feel as well when we get to it. So that's pretty much it from a beta update this morning. Overall, we are very excited. Our team is very focused on building something that not only we can be proud of, but something that the whole community enjoys and can really be proud of. We've been heads down, a lot of great progress, as you've just learned this morning and have been hearing from us over the last few weeks. And we want to keep this cadence. We want to keep moving at a pace which is good and healthy, and keep teeing towards a more and more robust product. So do expect a lot of updates from us as we keep moving forward. And obviously the updates will start getting more and more specific as we start getting into more and more of the specific feature sets. We will also be spending some time in the coming weeks documenting some of our innovation around glue on plasma. We have shared a fair bit, Bharat did in one of the webinars. And if you haven't caught up on that, again, I highly encourage, go back and please look at it. You'll enjoy that. We've also posted some of those ideas on ETH Research. We've received some great feedback. And what I would highly encourage is, again, go look that up and do let us know what you think of it. We might also formalize that into a little bit more of a technical paper, which might come in due course of time. At least that's the intent, and we'll certainly get our hands on it as soon as we can. And then on similar lines, we might address Leverj Predict as well. Another great idea, which was further down the line, something that Swag put out there, and we will certainly address that also in a little more formalized documentation, as well as a little bit more of a white paper or a technical paper approach as well. So people can, again, grok it, comment on it, and give us more feedback. So that's what's happening. Team is expanding. I also want to mention that we are actively looking for, in fact, we always are, but as we are growing and we are progressing forward, we are actively looking for extremely smart engineers who love this space and want to build the next fastest, most awesome exchange, decentralized exchange. Be part of the story. Come join us. The roles are varied. There are, of course, general software development roles. If you're an expert software developer, reach out to us. If you are more involved with DevOps type of roles, feel free to ping us too, because we do have a whole bunch of possibilities there. And then in addition to that, if you're also in the area of marketing or just overall sort of business development around exchanges, don't hesitate to reach out. Right now, there might be various times in terms of how we expand our team there, but it'll be great to start some conversation there. We will also be opening an office soon in Puerto Rico. So if anyone of you is based in Puerto Rico or wants to move to Puerto Rico and wants to be part of Leverj or the overall effort, well, let us know. So, we would love to initiate a conversation there. That's all I've got pretty much this morning. So thanks again for all your patience, and hopefully you've enjoyed what you've heard, and we can open it up for questions. So, Vilo, if there's anything, we can pick it up directly, or we can wait and have people sort of chime in.
Sure. Anybody, any questions, feel free to post them in the box in YouTube or on Telegram, and I can relay them here. Really quick, Shashank, do you want to talk about the kind of tester rotation?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I think this again comes from a viewpoint of one, that we are very inclusive, right? Like we already mentioned that a few times, and we want to make sure that newer set of people who have the time, energy, the background, they want to get involved, well, come on board, right? Just ping us, reach out to Vilo, and then we'll make sure you're part of the process. So we do want to include more people as we keep progressing forward. It doesn't mean that we want to necessarily change the set of people. We're very happy with all the exciting community members who are helping us out today. But at the same time, if you if you're a newer member who hasn't been involved yet, please come on board. Now, having said that, what I do realize is as we keep progressing forward, it's a journey. There's a lot that we need to accomplish. And some of you, depending on your own personal situation, may find that you may not have as much time as we keep moving forward, and may want to kind of maybe take a break, right? Or indulge in lesser amount of energy than you are today. Again, absolutely, we do appreciate everything that you do for us. So just let us know. And, we can perhaps keep sort of, people could swap in, swap out, if you may, out in this group. That way, we always have a bunch of people who are, very focused at that given point in time, have the right amount of energy and the right amount of bandwidth, and the other people can then pick up the baton from there.
Great, thanks, Shashank. So I did just get one question, and I think perhaps this was a very exciting kind of underplayed statement. The question was in regards to the new office in Puerto Rico. Do you have any details or explanation on that?
Sure. Let me give just a little pointer in that. A lot more details will come in due course of time.
Okay.
So the main and the important pointer here is that Leverj is growing, as I mentioned, and we have certainly been expanding our presence in regions where we see enough amount of crypto enthusiasts, right? And what we have been realizing is that a lot of people in the crypto space who care about the evolution of crypto space, and people who are wanting to be part of that sort of next community that will build the sort of crypto ecosystem, are moving towards Puerto Rico. So we did consider that for the last multiple months, and we realized that I think it's important for an exchange like ours, which is focused on the international market. When I say international markets, we do not serve US customers. We serve the international markets. And in this international market, both, of course, it gives us access to the crypto community in Puerto Rico, but also it's an interesting time zone, so to speak, which gets us closer to the other offices that we will be contemplating in due course of time, whether it's going to be somewhere in Europe or Asia. So we are very excited about this. A few of the core members of the team would be moving to Puerto Rico, and some of that is going on is in process. So I'm not going to spill the beans on that yet, but you will hear about that soon enough, perhaps in the next webinar or so. But the idea is that some of the core members move to Puerto Rico and then set up an office there. And then these crypto enthusiasts who are already there, or people who are looking to move and join that community, and become part of the initial setup. We don't know the specifics yet. Nothing has been decided, but the overall intention is to be in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And, we certainly will set up a corporate presence there. But it's coming soon. So if you are one of those who's interested, we'll reach out right away and let's start talking. Hope that helps.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you again. So unless there are any further questions. All right. Thank you. So this beta program has been amazing to be a part of, and I look forward to continuing to work with a great community. If you'd like to inquire about taking part in the future of this beta program, please reach out on our Telegram channel. It's t.me/Leverj if you're not already in it. And all right, let's wrap this up. Thank you to everyone watching and listening, and have a beautiful day.
All right. Thank you, Vilo, and thanks the entire community. Enjoy your weekend.